diddly-dee, an actor's life for me.
An actor's life may sound like all fun and games when it's laid out by a sketchy cartoon fox singing a delightful little ditty, but it can bring more trouble than just long, odd hours and having to make appearances on far too many talk shows. We all know how some actors go through massive personal transformations in order to portray a certain character. I mean, seriously, you think slimming down for the Machinist was easy? Somebody give that man a burger. But the things they go through on set can also have surprising, unforeseen physical and mental consequences, or change their outlook on certain subjects. And sometimes, even just the audience reception of their performances can end up changing their personal lives irreversibly. But that's what we're taking a look at today. Actors and actresses whose roles ended up having a huge impact on their lives, positive as well as negative. There are two sides to an iconic film character. One is the power of the performance by an actor or actress in question. Another is the reaction of the people watching. And in Linda Blair's case, her performance as the possessed girl Regan in 1973's The Exorcist was so powerful that it actually convinced a bunch of religious viewers that the only way that she could be so terrifying was if she was genuinely possessed, and that she needed to be subjected to a genuine exorcism. Blair spent a good chunk of her teenage years constantly being hounded by reporters and various religious groups in order to question her on the film's theme and even quiz her on her faith and Christianity as a whole. Sounds a lot more intrusive than Pazuzu ever was. Ever had imaginary friends? Ever had literal dozens of them? Bob Hoskins took what many would consider an impossible job when he played Eddie Valiant in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and had to spend most of his time acting against imaginary, hand-drawn cartoon characters that would only be added to the film later. Only rarely did he have an actual person in front of him to interact with. To hear Hoskins tell it, he pulled this off by studying his daughter playing with her imaginary friends, which sounds adorable, except he ended up doing this so often that he started to hallucinate strange characters even while off set, and it apparently took a year's break from acting in general to shake it off. Wait a minute, a man who hallucinates cartoon characters even while off duty. Is Bob Hoskins' career just a prequel to Happy? Using method acting in an attempt to better capture an extreme personality on film is often an admirable procedure, and it's not uncommon for an actor to move into certain facilities or areas to get a proper feel for the environment and how it affects certain people. It happens all the time. What doesn't happen all the time is the actor actually moving into someone's basement to study their mannerisms. But that's exactly what Johnny Depp did when he portrayed the colorful Raoul Duke, based on the story's writer Hunter S. Thompson. While living there, he spent every waking moment studying Hunter's mannerisms to a T, and the two ended up becoming very good friends over this time. Good enough friends that Depp allegedly forked out over $3 million to have his good pal's remains shot out of a cannon after he died, as per his wishes. A beautiful friendship indeed. Just don't try to become someone's friend by moving into their basement yourself. I'm pretty sure that just makes you a stalker. Have you ever had your eyes forced open for an examination or procedure? It's terrible. Ew. Yuck. But I'm willing to bet that it's even worse when it goes on for hours and hours and is used to brainwash all violent tendencies out of your mind, and even make you associate your favorite music with horrible pain. This is exactly what happened to Malcolm McDowell's character Alexander DeLarge in A Clockwork Orange. But the real ultra-violence was actually inflicted on McDowell's eyes, as wearing that contraption for endless takes and long hours actually scratched his cornea and even caused temporary blindness. It was apparently bad enough for even a notoriously draconic director like Stanley Kubrick to say enough was enough and settle for the takes that he had. That's how you know that things got bad. Playing a character who has suffered extreme circumstances can sometimes really open a person's eyes to others' plights. And that's exactly what happened to Brie Larson while working on Room. Not The Room, just Room. While preparing for her role as a mother caring for her son born as a result of sexual assault, she studied the effects it has on people's psyche and became a big-time activist in the field of survivor treatment. After winning Best Actress for Room at the Academy Awards, she also got up to give each of the survivors that took part in Lady Gaga's performance of her song Till It Happens to You from the campus assault documentary Hunting Grounds a hug on the way back to their seats. Score 1 for solidarity. Much like Larson, Don Cheadle found that one of his roles lit a fire inside him that sent him down the path of activism after portraying the real-life hotel owner in Hotel Rwanda, who hid refugees in his hotel during the Rwandan genocide. Not content with just studying the role by speaking to survivors of this and similar tragedies, he's since traveled to Sudan with John Pendergast, became a member of the International Crisis Group, and co-wrote the book Not on Our Watch: The Mission to End Genocide in Darfur and Beyond. He also joined the similarly named Not on Our Watch charity, co-founded by George Clooney, who we'll get to later, by the way. Some of history's scariest movie scenes don't just affect the audience, they may very well shake the performers to their core while they're at it. Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho broke new ground in 1960 by not just killing off the main character a little over a third into the movie, but doing so in that one place we're all at our most vulnerable, in the shower. And that idea frightened actress Janet Leigh so much that she swore off showers for the rest of her life. That is to say, she still bathed, of course. She just preferred to sit in the tub with a clear view of the door, her windows locked and the shower curtains drawn, just in case. Man, if Psycho really messed with her that much, I just hope she never watched Nightmare on Elm Street. It's usually said that method acting requires sacrifice, and nowhere is that more true than with Adrian Brody's role in The Pianist, where he played a real-life Jewish radio pianist who was separated from his family in World War II and spent years hiding in various places in the ruins of Warsaw. To properly get the mindset of a man who lost everything and lived in isolation, Brody decided to wipe his life clean by not just selling his apartment and car, but even ending his relationship with his girlfriend so that he could live in isolation for months. Talk about paying out the nose for that Academy Award. You probably don't associate the film adaptation of a series of action games like Tomb Raider with life-changing realizations, but when Angelina Jolie went to Cambodia to shoot both films, she took interest in the struggles of the Cambodian people. And with that, Angelina took a turn of activism that was even sharper than Lara Croft's chess polygons, doing relief work in over 20 countries. In 2005 and 2006, she launched 2 charity centers, namely the Center for Refugee and Immigrant Children, which provides legal aid for asylum seekers, as well as the Maddox Shivan Children's Center for treatment of children with HIV. All of this has earned her several humanitarian awards as well, which I'm sure fit nicely on the trophy shelf next to her archaeological treasures. Sometimes someone else sees great potential in the role you've played that you might not even have realized yourself. This is exactly what happened to Nichelle Nichols, who made TV history when her character Lieutenant Uhura shared American TV's first interracial kiss with Captain Kirk, played of course by William Shatner. While she and the TV station received an onslaught of upset and outright threatening letters for it that made her consider quitting, she was eventually approached by none other than Martin Luther King Jr., who told her that she was a symbol and had to keep fighting the good fight. Her influence made it far enough that even NASA approached her to help them properly diversify, leading to her helping astronauts such as Mae Jemison and Sally Ride. In other words, space wasn't a final frontier for Nichelle, it was just the beginning. You know those moments in movies where someone is way out of their depth right until they hear the right wise words from the right person at the right time that puts them back on track? Sometimes those moments in movies transcend the scene and affect the actual actors. When Jennifer Garner played a mother suffering a crisis of faith in Miracles from Heaven, she was fresh off her divorce from Ben Affleck and was reportedly in a pretty terrible state, right until she filmed the scene where her character's pastor shares a few wise words. I've struggled with faith and I've struggled without it, and I'll tell you, it's a whole lot easier with. This was exactly what Garner needed to hear, apparently. And soon enough, she was once again attending church every Sunday with her daughters. Hey, John Carroll Lynch, you ever considered a secondary career in therapy? Baram you! Baram you! Sorry, I couldn't help it. While James Cromwell had been a vegetarian ever since the 1970s, it wasn't until he played the kindly farmer in the children's classic Babe from 1995, where he develops a close bond with the titular sheep-herding pig, that he took a sharper turn into all-out veganism. To hear him tell it, having to spend all day surrounded by adorable animals, only to then watch everyone eat their relatives at the lunch table, was a big deciding factor in this. But he didn't stick with just changing his diet. Cromwell is very outspoken against all forms of animal cruelty, and even lent his voice to the 2011 documentary From Farm to Fridge that explores the darker side of factory farming. And all because his co-stars in Babe were just so darn cute. Going back to method acting, Jim Carrey is also known for doing some spectacular deep dives to get a character right, and nowhere is that more clear than in his portrayal of absurdist comedian Andy Kaufman in 1999's Man on the Moon. Heck, Carrey's study of Kaufman was so extensive that it became the basis of an entire documentary titled Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond in 2017. Apparently, Carrey dedicated himself so hard to the role on and off camera that by the time he was done, he barely remembered having done it, and found that it had left him as a shell of his former self, finding much of his life meaningless, even going to the New York Fashion Week because it was the most meaningless thing that he could think of doing. What, starring in the 2005 remake of Fun with Dick and Jane wasn't meaningless enough? People have habits. Some people have unhealthy habits. And sometimes actors have to imitate those habits. Sarah Paulson was never actually a smoker until she accepted her roles in American Crime Story, The People vs. O.J. Simpson, as well as the beloved horror series American Horror Story. But due to the grueling amount of cigarettes that she had to go through while playing in these roles, Paulson apparently ended up getting genuinely addicted to nicotine. According to an interview with Stephen Colbert, she would actually find herself getting impatient to shoot scenes where she got to smoke. Whoops. Well, we're sorry about the addiction, Paulson, but I'm sure everyone who's seen you be awesome in those parts wants to say thank you for smoking. Was that good? Was that a good reference? I might need to rework that. Personal speech patterns and national accents aren't easy to imitate, and actual speech impediments aren't any easier. That's why actors have vocal coaches. And Colin Firth must have sought out an exceptionally good one when he had to portray King George VI of England in The King's Speech, who rather famously had a stutter that made holding royal speeches very difficult until he, too, sought out a vocal coach. Colin Firth walked away from his sessions with a stutter that wasn't just convincing enough to play the part, but also persistent enough that he actually lapsed into stuttering in his private life for a while afterwards. Though judging from later roles, he seems to have gotten over it. Speaking of vocal coaches, you can all pack away your jokes about Arnold Schwarzenegger needing one. He's already had plenty. Despite popular belief, the beloved former governor is actually perfectly capable of speaking English without his iconic Austrian accent, both thanks to his coaches and, living the majority of his life in America. It's just that all of his early characters and his voice delivering all those kick-ass one-liners during his career has become so iconic in the minds of people that he knows full well that people expect it from him in public appearances and video recordings. And he's more than happy to provide for fans. What a cool guy. Now, everybody with me, say, thanks, Turbo Man! Stepping away from Arnold for a second, let's focus on one of the people that he got famous for chasing in the first place, Linda Hamilton. She might be one of the coolest, toughest women in action movie history after her performance in Terminator 2. But that status didn't come without a price. You see, all those badass gunfights in movies might look cool, but they're loud. Very loud. And when Hamilton forgot to wear her protective earplugs during filming in the elevator gunfight in Terminator 2, the echoes ended up causing permanent hearing damage. Man, what a bummer to be playing opposite Arnold Schwarzenegger and not being able to hear those awesome one-liners. Simply tragic.
You're fired.
Ever played a game of Monopoly that nearly ended some of your friendships? It can get pretty bad, but try almost getting your friend killed because of a movie stunt. Like many directors who find a BFF in particular actors, like Tim Burton and Johnny Depp or John Carpenter and Kurt Russell, Quentin Tarantino took such a shine to Uma Thurman after Pulp Fiction that he's even referred to her as his muse on numerous occasions. Unfortunately, this led to Tarantino insisting that she should perform a dangerous car stunt herself in his kung fu epic Kill Bill, which almost immediately went horribly wrong and nearly cost her her life. Thankfully, Uma got off somewhat light, but the damages that her leg and knee suffered still plague her to this day. So, should we prepare ourselves for the release of Kill Quentin? Better start believing in cautionary success stories, Miss Knightley. You're in one. There's a phrase that describes suddenly finding yourself very famous very fast as rocketing to stardom, which is basically what happened to Keira Knightley when she portrayed Elizabeth Swann in Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean at only 17 years old. Now you'd think that such sudden, massive success would be dreams come true, but for Knightley, it quickly turned into a nightmare as the pressure got to her. She got hit hard by imposter syndrome, constantly being anxious about potentially making a career-ending mistake, giving a disappointing performance, or being hounded by the paparazzi. It got so bad that she allegedly went to hypnotherapy to keep from panicking during the 2008 BAFTAs. The feminist epic Thelma and Louise, where two women end up on the road after accidentally killing a sexual aggressor, seemingly struck a chord not just with its female audience, but also with Gina Davis herself. After the film's release, she was often approached by women telling her how much her character had inspired them to seek out their own inner strength. And as a result of this, Gina Davis went on to found the Gina Davis Institute on Gender in Media, which serves to highlight the gender ratio of characters in media, which the Institute's initial studies found to be an embarrassing 3-to-1. Though I can't help but feel like there'd be more women in cinema if they didn't keep driving off of cliffs. Life is like a box of chocolates. Too bad Tom Hanks can't eat any of them anymore. Hanks is known for going through remarkable transformations for his roles. He seems to throw off and regain weight for his various characters with the same ease that the rest of us eat a Big Mac, such as losing weight to play an AIDS patient in Philadelphia or a volleyball befriending castaway in, well, Castaway. Not to mention gaining some for A League of Their Own, and Tom Hanks has gone on to blame these constant weight shifts for the type 2 diabetes diagnosis that he later ended up with. Well, don't worry, Tom. Candy or no candy, you're still sweet. Sweet enough to play Mr. Rogers. Okay, so maybe smoking cigarettes in 2 separate roles at once didn't go so well for Sarah Paulson, but maybe Gary Oldman will have some more luck. After all, when he played former Prime Minister Winston Churchill in Darkest Hour, that was only 1 smoking role, and he only had to smoke 1 cigar brand, Juliet Cuban, which he smoked about 400 of over the course of filming and actually got nicotine poisoning from. Alright, now I feel bad for that thank you for smoking crack. Curse you, Aaron Eckhart, curse you and your charm for making me reference this movie whenever I get the chance. It's a thankless world that we live in. Despite Clooney having done so much good by co-founding the aforementioned Not On Our Watch charity, his film career still had some serious injuries in store for him. Certainly he was prepared for shooting a torture scene in Syriana, but he probably wasn't prepared for actually cracking his skull and ripping his spine. Clooney was soon hospitalized, and from what he has told of his experience in interviews since, the pain was bad enough that he contemplated ending it all in his hospital bed once or twice. His back hasn't been the same since, and he reports still periodically getting awful headaches as a result. Ouch. Hey, look at that, a twofer. Star Wars fans are a passionate bunch. Too passionate sometimes. There was just as much, and in fact possibly more excitement back in the late 90s and early 2000s when the prequel trilogy came out as there was in more recent years regarding the new trilogy. But when the prequels turned out to be near universally disappointing, it spelled quite a bit of trouble for everyone involved, especially the very young Jake Lloyd, who played the young Anakin Skywalker in The Phantom Menace. Not only did viewers viciously bully his performance, but even his own schoolmates picked on him for it, causing the former Star Wars lover to not only quit acting, but throw away all of his Star Wars merchandise. Hayden Christensen, who took over as the somewhat older Anakin, didn't fare too well either. Thanks to the vitriol that he faced from moviegoers after his performance, it became rather difficult for the actor to land many big roles since. Are we sure there are only ever 2 Sith out there at any given time? Because that's kinda evil. And bonus points, it seems like Daisy Ridley is starting to see this same effect. Bummer. Which of these roles that change the actors' lives is your personal favorite? Be sure to let me know down in the comments below, and while you're down there, why not consider subscribing to Screen Rant for even more awesome videos just like this each and every day. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.